Hello, friends. Welcome to the Motivational Stories podcast. My name is Meena. I do tell some motivational feel-good stories. You can hear the stories for yourself, for your kids, family, anybody, right? It's feel-good. All right. Today's story is 3 knots in a rope. It is one of Buddha's teaching. So here it goes. One morning, when a lot of disciples were sitting and waiting for Buddha to come, he came, and on a closer look, they saw that he had a rope in his hand. Okay, so he came and sat under a tree in front of all his disciples, okay, for a discourse, and they were all looking at him. After taking his seat and without saying anything, he started tying knots in the rope. And after tying knots, Buddha asked all his disciples, I have tied 3 knots in this rope. Now I want to know from you whether it is the same rope which it was before or it has changed. The disciples started thinking. One of them said, this is a bit difficult to answer. It really depends on how we look at it. From one point of view, the rope is not the same because initially it was a straight rope. Now it has 3 knots in it. Another way to look at it is that even though the rope has a knots in it, still the basic material is the same. The knots are also made up of the same material as the rope, or the knots and the rope are the same. So that way we can say it didn't change. So the way we look at it, we could either say it has changed or it still remained the same. Okay. Buddha smiled and said, yes, it is true. Now I will untie these knots. Okay. So Buddha started to untie the knots. And what he did was he began to pull the 2 ends of the rope away from each other, okay, in order to untie the knots. So while doing this, he asked, what do you think? By pulling it like this, will I untie the knots? The disciple said, no. Doing this will only tighten the knots, and it would make it more difficult to untie them. Okay, Buddha said, one last question. Tell us, what do we have to do to untie these knots? The disciple said, for this, we have to look closely at the knots so that we know how they were put on, and then we can try to untie them. Buddha said, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. So I see most of the people want to solve the problems without knowing the reason, without knowing the real cause of the problem. So if people ask you, why do they get angry? Instead, they ask how to put an end to the anger. Okay? It's like people are asking me, where did this ego come in from me? They straight away ask me, how do I get rid of the ego? So that's it, my friends. Just as the rope doesn't change its basic form even after it's tied in knots, similarly, the seeds of goodness do not perish from within a human being due to some disorder. Every human being has something good in him. Okay? We were born nice. Imagine a child which is born doesn't know anything about ego, anger, nothing. It's the upbringing. It's the circumstances in which the child grows up. Okay, his experiences, the child's experiences shape them into young adults, and then how they become later on in life. Okay, it is necessary to know the cause of any problem very well. Only then you can achieve the solution, or the solution will be visible automatically, right? So hopefully you learned something from this. Thank you all again for listening. Stay tuned for some other stories some other time. Until then, take care. Bye.